Thank you, Tiffany. A couple weeks ago, we kicked off a new series called Be Still, Regaining Mental Health Through Spiritual Disciplines. And the first message in the series was all about the problem, which we used a lot of research from Jonathan Haidt in the book, The Anxious Generation. Last week was the first solution. And so we're going to spend the next 5 weeks together looking at each week. We'll add one more. And we're looking at spiritual disciplines. And last week we talked about community, which may have been a little different because we've thought about spiritual disciplines in the context of individual pursuits. Like that's kind of the way we were taught to think about spiritual disciplines growing up was, spiritual discipline is something I do by myself. We're talking about prayer, talking about fasting, meditating on Scripture. These are things that I do by myself. And there are some spiritual disciplines like that. But we're starting the series with some spiritual disciplines that we do together. Because these things aren't just meant to be practiced by ourselves. They're meant to be practiced in community. There are spiritual disciplines. We just got done with a spiritual discipline we do together. Whether that's worshiping together, praying together, giving together, serving together. We do these things in community. And the challenge for us, and we're kind of weaving all this together as we talk about this, but the challenge for us is this right here. So we know that we're to be in community together, but we also have devices now that pull us away from community and that pull us out of the communal spaces and places and activities that we need for our mental health and we need for our spiritual health. And the word discipline is right when it comes to community because it's difficult. It's hard to do this. We're fighting, a device that's constantly pulling us away from community, and we have to do all we can to create and maintain and experience and participate in community. Because we think, God was right when He wrote or inspired the author of Hebrews to write that don't give up meeting together, as some of you are in the habit of doing, but encourage one another. All the more, we need encouragement to stay together in community. We have to continue meeting together and continue being a part of community. And our kids need that same encouragement. And I know a lot of parents right now are kind of feeling that, and I'll talk at the end of this message about something that maybe a resource we've got for some parents. But I've talked to parents, they're like, how do I help my kids navigate this? I mean, they're going through something that I never really went through when I was going through adolescence, so how do I help my kids have community? And I'll tell you, I said this last week, I'll repeat it this week, the answer is not to throw this away. That's not going to go well for you because I know some are like, I'm just going to get rid of the video game systems and the phone and the screens and all of it. It's like, pastor says it's bad for you. That's not going to go well for you, all right? And don't throw it away unless you're willing to give it up yourself. So you're not going to throw it away now. But what we have to do is figure out how to help our kids over time develop healthy habits, like to set some limits, to have some proper boundaries, to go outside. We're going to have to push it, go outside and, call some friends and hang out, go to the dance. It'll be worth it, I promise. We're going to have to encourage our kids to do this because in some cases they don't really know how to do it. And so that's kind of what we're talking today. This is part 2 of community, if you will. In order to have community, you got to be present. You have to show up in order to have community. So that's kind of where we're going today. First, I got to tell you the story behind this graphic right here for the series. So I've been waiting 3 weeks to tell you this story. And so I finally, after what happened yesterday, I get to tell you. Tiffany designed this, and I don't ever tell her what to do for the designs. Like basically she has access to our preaching schedule. She looks at it in advance, sees the title, sees all the topics, and she comes up with a graphic. Tim does some of that as well. So I believe Tiffany designed this one though. And we were right before this series started, a week before it started, we were in the sound booth and we were having our pre-worship meeting and she threw this up on the stage. It's the first time any of us have seen it. And everybody's like, oh, that's great, Tiffany. That's good. That really captures the series. And Ebony goes, Tiffany, you know what I see when I look at this logo, or this design? What I see is I see that dock and I want to walk out on it and sit down and I just see solitude and peace and presence, and it's the perfect graphic for this series. And I said, I agree, it is the perfect graphic. You know what I see when I see this graphic? I see the power T. So I had Tiffany redesign it just for the ball fans and said, if we could just use this for the series from now on. Now, I had that set up 2 weeks ago, and then we lost to Vanderbilt the day before church. And then I had it set up last week, and we lost to Auburn, and I was really hoping for a victory against Florida so I could finally use this graphic. And so we finally got a chance to use it. So we're not going to do that, obviously. This is the one we're sticking with. But now that you've seen it, you can never unsee it, right? You're welcome. Let's talk about presence. Michael Haidt calls it embodiment, and that's a good word, and we're going to I guess you could use the words embodied presence, but I want to show you why I think presence is just a little better, so let's kind of set it up. Embodiment is defined as the concept of living and experience life through a physical form, and so this is like, being physically available instead of only virtually available, being, physically participating in a meeting instead of just doing a virtual meeting, physically participating in life, like an embodied presence. I'm there, present, I'm at the meal, I'm at the meeting, I'm at the ball game, whatever it is. So that's the concept of embodiment. Presence is just a little bit deeper than that, I believe, and it's defined as the state of being fully engaged, attentive, and focused in the present moment. So present means I'm not just physically there, but I'm mentally there, I'm emotionally there, I'm engaged. I mean, we can be embodied somewhere and still not be present, right? We can be present in body, but absent in mind and absent in spirit. So presence is about my spirit's here, my body's here, it's all there. And here's the way, a little further definition. Presence is about being mentally and emotionally present in a situation, giving one's full attention, and actively participating in interactions or activities. Being present allows for deep connections, understanding, and meaningful engagement with others. And that's what I like, is kind of that last sentence. Like, we all want deep connections. We want healthy relationships in our lives. We want healthy marriages and healthy relationships with our kids and healthy relationships with parents or with friends and all those kind of things. To do that, we've got to be present. We have to be present in order to have those kind of that deep connection, the understanding, meaningful engagement. And the challenge is, as I mentioned earlier, we're constantly being distracted away from embodied presence. So I can be present in body, but I'm absent in mind because something's always pulling at me. I'm not fully present, right? I can be halfway present. I'm halfway listening to you as I scroll and as I look through stuff. I'm halfway listening. I'm there. I'm catching bits and pieces, but I'm not fully present. And the difference is, I think, when you're fully present, when there's no phone and you're just sitting down having coffee with somebody, or you're having dinner with somebody and you're fully present, you have to respond. If they ask you a question, you got to respond, or that's weird, right? When you ran into somebody in the hall and they asked you a question, you just looked at them, that'd be weird. That's not weird on this device. I do that all the time. You can ask me a question. I don't have to respond. I can wait an hour. I can wait 2 hours. I don't even have, some days somebody sent me an email. I don't know where you are, Nate. He sent me an email, and I was like, oh, I saw him in person. I was like, I totally forgot to respond to you. I totally forgot. I'm so sorry. But that's like when you're talking about a device like this, I don't have to be as engaged as I am in real life. I don't have to maintain eye contact. I don't have to actively listen. I don't have to answer your questions. Like if I post on Facebook, devastating news today, please pray. I don't care how many of you comment, what happened? Oh my goodness, what happened? What's going on? I don't have to reply. And those should be illegal on Facebook, by the way. Those types of posts should be illegal because we're all talking about you behind your back, calling, what's going on with Russ? He just posted this terrible thing, and he was vague, and we don't know what's going on. But, that's the nature of online community. It doesn't require our full presence, because if I said that in real life, if I ran into you in the church hallway and they said, how you doing? And I said, oh, terrible. I had the worst day ever. I got the worst news yesterday I've ever received in my life. What are you going to do? You're going to respond with caring and empathy. Oh, my goodness, what? What happened? Tell me. And you're going to have empathy and caring and all that for it. In the online world, you don't have to have that all the time. And I'm not totally discounting virtual community. There is a place for virtual community. I still participate in virtual community. But I think that virtual community should be an extension of real community, not a replacement of it, if you understand what I mean by that. So I got a group me for softball. that's an extension of a real community that I'm a part of. And I know those folks, and so if there's messages in there, that's virtual, but that's an extension of it. Or if I participate in a Zoom meeting with my elders, I got a real community that's rooted in, and we can have that meeting and talk about those things in there. So it should be an extension of, but not a replacement. When it becomes a replacement, there are limitations because I don't really know how you're doing when I only know you through text messages. You can make the argument that video messages are a little different, and I get that, or FaceTime's a little different than that, but I don't really know how you're doing because if you're just sending me text messages, I can't read your facial expressions, your body language, your tone of voice. I can't see the emotion in your eyes or hear the emotion in your voice. You could be totally spiraling out of control, and on the text messages, everything's fine. And so you don't have, there's a certain level that we're able to hide ourselves in online community. And you go back to verses like we looked at last week, Bible says if one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. It's like, how do we do that in just 100% virtual community? How is that possible? To know when people are suffering or to know when people are rejoicing so that we can respond appropriately. Or Romans 12:15 talks about it too. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. This is very difficult to do in virtual community alone. Now we can do that once it's rooted in a real relationship. You can send me a text message and that's rooted in something. I know you personally and I know that means something. But when it's not rooted in any real relationship, it's very difficult to practice those things as a church. So I want to kind of go to something Haidt said in the book. I want to read you an excerpt or two here because I think he introduces a practice that could help us do both of these things. We're talking about how can we be, both of these verses require us to be present. So how can we be present in our communities, in our families, with our friends, with our coworkers, with folks we go to church with? How can we be present? And I think Haidt gives an answer in the book that I wasn't expecting, but I think it's a very spiritual practice, okay? He says, now first thing he does, he says, anyone who's participated in a Zoom-based wedding, funeral, or religious service during the COVID pandemic, so think back 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you know how much is lost when rituals go virtual. Humans evolved to be religious by being together and moving together. And the Great Rewiring reduced synchronous physical movement, indeed all physical movement, and then COVID lockdowns reduced it further still. He's talking about we were present in worship today, but we were physically present in worship today. At some point we got up out of our seat and gathered around a table and we had to say hello to some folks and see some folks and that kind of stuff. And he's like, there's a good thing. That ritual is different online than it is in real life, right? When we took communion during COVID, to be honest, I took it for a while, and then I was like, this just doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel the same to do it by myself. Communion is meant to be practiced together. It's meant to be practiced with a group of people. So, yes, you can do it by yourself, but it just doesn't feel the same. And that's kind of what he's hinting at here. But here's the spiritual practice he gives. It's connected to communion, but not that. Perhaps the most important embodied activity that binds people together is eating. Most major holidays or holy days and rites of passage involve a feast or at least a shared meal. Often foods with a specific for that day or ritual. Imagine how you would feel if you were an American and someone in your family said on Thanksgiving that he was feeling hungry, so he was going to take his portion of turkey stuffing and cranberry sauce now, an hour before dinner, and eat it alone in the other room. Then he'd come back and sit with family while they ate. Would your mama allow that? No, you ain't. No, you go eat with the family. You're not going to go eat by yourself. This is Thanksgiving. We're supposed to be together on Thanksgiving. We're supposed to have this meal together. The assembled family and friends must share the food. And this is among the most widespread of human customs. People who break bread together have a bond. The simple act of eating together, especially from the same plate or serving dish, strengthens that bond and reduces the likelihood of conflict. This is one deficiency the virtual world can never overcome, no matter how good VR gets. And what he's talking about is something that Jesus understood. If you look at the ministry of Jesus, he understood it from day one. One of the things that Jesus routinely did in his ministry was eat together with people. It was the way that he communicated connection. It's the way that he communicated inclusion. When Jesus went to have a meal at somebody's house, like Zacchaeus says, today I'm going to eat at your house, he communicates inclusion, that this is a man that I want to spend time with. This is somebody that's important to me. Some of his most important teachings were set up at the meal table. In some case, the meal was the most important teaching. I was talking about communion. That was a practice established at a meal that we continue to practice today. When Jesus went to the Pharisee's house and the woman anointed him with her hair and her tears, he was teaching in that moment. And so Jesus did this routinely. His first miracle was turning water into wine at a wedding feast. And one of the last acts upon this earth was having breakfast with his disciples on the beach after the resurrection, before the ascension. So this is all throughout Scripture, and Luke kind of gets it a little bit more than the other Gospels. You'd be surprised when you go through Luke how many times it mentions Jesus eating together with people, whether it's his disciples or tax collectors or Pharisees or prostitutes or whoever it is. Jesus is constantly at the table because table fellowship communicated inclusion, just like it does today. Table fellowship communicated presence. I'm here with you in mind and body. I am present with you to be in fellowship with you, in community with you. And there's an interesting thing that I can't remember who said it. I looked it up in an old sermon I did because we did a whole series on the table fellowship of Jesus. But this phrase right here, the Son of Man came. Like, how would you finish that? You know, what did Jesus come for? And we go, well, you know, the Son of Man came to be a ransom for many. And yet that's Mark chapter 10. The Son of Man didn't come to serve, but to be served, or not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So Jesus came to serve and to give his life. And you say, well, the Son of Man came, and there's another one here, Luke 19:10, he came to seek and save the lost. That's the reason the Son of Man came. But there's an interesting one in Luke chapter 7, where he says, the Son of Man came eating and drinking. And he's just describing the activities of Jesus. When Jesus came, he came for people. And the way that he engaged with people was by breaking bread with them. And he did this so often, people accused him of being a glutton and a drunkard. I mean, this is one of the criticisms Jesus got, was all he does is eat with tax collectors and sinners. You know, what is the matter with this guy? And he's just building intentional community and intentional presence. And you say, well, that's what we need to be doing. Jesus was, like, you look at the ministry of Jesus. Jesus knew the value of being present with the people around him. And I don't think we've totally lost that today. We still have meals together. We still celebrate Thanksgiving with family. We still have big feasts and holy days that we celebrate together. We still get together with other people. You know, it's not total. We're not totally in a VR world where we're just totally all into our phones. We still get together. But since 2010, 2011, there's an extra device in all of our hands that's present at the gatherings. And it makes it very difficult to be fully present in the moment. I go back to this, this quote from Haidt, from last week. It's connecting us to everyone in the world and disconnecting us from the people around us. And you think about it, and that's exactly what's happening, not just with Gen Z. This is happening with all of us. When I got this device in my hand, I am tempted I'm present with you, but I'm not fully present because I got access to everyone in the world. I can access anything I want here, and it often pulls me away from the people around me, because as soon as I go into this world, it distracts me. As soon as I go into this world, like, did you know that was Tennessee's biggest win over an AP top 5 team in program history, in Rick Barnes history? 20 points. Oh, USC beat Michigan yesterday too. Oh, did you see the ASU? The coach sent them. Hold on. There's some video of it. Hold on. I'll send it to you. There's some video. The ASU coach sent them out to right 30 seconds before the game. He sent everybody to the locker room. They didn't even shake hands with Arizona, and he said it was an ugly win on Arizona. Hold on. I got a reel of it somewhere here. Hold on. Let me find it. Wait a minute. Hold on. This is just this won't take a minute. Thank you. Somebody text me. Just hold on. Did you know I was going to be preaching about this? Question mark. Just 1 second. Okay. What were we talking about again? What was going on? Right? Does that look familiar? Yeah? Does this look familiar? Hold on 1 sec. This is like the third time they've called. I got to answer this. Yeah. No, I'm not busy. What's going on? Yeah. Okay. Right? Does that look familiar? After first service, somebody's like, "You're a pretty good actor." I was like, "No, I got a lot of experience in this realm." That's not acting. That's just like real life stuff right there. So what do we do? How do we practice presence when everything is pulling us away from presence? Well, I got some tips for you. How much time I got? 5 minutes. I got some tips. And this is just like the email I sent earlier in the week. Just pick one. Okay, I'm going to give you 4. I gave you 4 things to do last week. Just pick one. You don't got to do all of them. Just pick one. I got 4 things this week. No, it wasn't. No, so, sorry. Now everybody's texting me now that I got this sitting here. But that was pretty good. I got 4 tips, and I'm violating one of them right now. So it's 4 tips. Just pick one of them, and you may have more. You may come up with more. And I'll go ahead and give a disclaimer before I share them, because my family attends this church. My friends attend this church. I don't do half of these, okay? So tonight, when I get called out, like, "I thought you said no phones." Yeah, I know, okay? I don't do half of these, but they work. They do work. And if you want to be more present, here's some things you can do. Number 1, no phones at the dinner table. Now, some of you may already have this rule. Kudos to you. Some of you may be going, "Well, what's the verse on that? Did Jesus ever say that?" No, Jesus never said no phones at the dinner table. And because Jesus, well, I can't say he didn't imagine phones at the dinner table. I can't say that. But that wasn't an issue in the first century. All right? But that's a very simple way to be more present, is to just simply say, "Hey, we're going to put them up for 45 minutes, an hour. You know, we're going to leave them in the living room, leave them sitting on the kitchen counter, turned upside down. If you're going out to eat, leave it in the car," which is very difficult. But just set it aside just for an hour, just so we can have actual conversations. The first time you do it, it's real painful because you're like, I don't know what to talk about. And how do we look up stuff when we have questions that we don't know what's going on? And how do we share videos together? And how do I show you what that ASU coach did? You know, I don't know how to do this. But that's a very simple way to do it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Number 2, I don't do this, but it's a good idea. No phones after a certain time at night, or no phones before a certain time in the morning, especially if you're spending that with other people. So that you may say, "All right, I'm not going to pick up the phone the first thing. When I get out of the bed, I'm not going to do a phone first thing. I'm going to have a little bit of time. I might pick up a book. I might pick up a Bible. You know, I'm just going to take a little bit of time." Even if it's watching TV. Which, even if it's like, I will flip on TV and watch a little news here before I pick up the phone, because the TV doesn't require me to respond to anything, although I do talk to my TV. But the TV doesn't require that. The political shows and sports, I talk a lot to the TV. But the phone I'm seeing emails, I'm seeing text messages, and all of a sudden, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm already at work because I'm responding already to my phone. So set it aside for a little bit first thing in the morning. Or at night, a certain time at night, 9:30, 10 o'clock, like nobody's texting. Nobody needs to be texting me at this time anyway. So turn on the do not disturb and set it aside. So those are some simple ways to be present. No phones with your meeting with someone, because this happened in real time with me. Because when we meet with somebody, we go to coffee with somebody, we have a work meeting with somebody. What do we do with our phones? We put them right down on the table, face up, right in front of us, and we have the conversation. But if a friend texts, I'm going to see it, and I'm going to respond to it, right? Or I'm going to feel like I should respond to it. Or if somebody calls and I've been trying to call them 2 or 3 times and there they are and I just started this meeting. Can you just give me 5 minutes to answer this call real quick? I mean, that's so what we could do is as simple as that. Just flip it over. If it buzzes, that's okay. They're not expecting you to answer in the next 15 seconds. You got an hour. You take the hour and answer them. You can leave it in the car if you want to. You can leave it in the next room. Any of those types of things will help. One of the studies I saw this week was from 2024 that the average person receives 146 notifications per day. 146. That's 10 per waking hour if you're doing the math, I think. And so it's constantly buzzing at us. And this is my last one right here. Turn off your notifications. I have done this one mostly. And this would be a game changer. I still get weather notifications. I still get text message notifications. And I still get the score of Tennessee games. But other than that, and I'm honestly going to turn those off because I've been watching on like a 15-second delay and it pops up and tells you who won. So, but I don't get email notifications. I don't get group me notifications. I don't get every app wants to send you notifications, and there's a setting in your phone, and you can go and turn every single one of them off. That doesn't mean you're not going to see them. You can still see them. I can open my email right now. It takes about 3 swipes and hit it, and I can see all the emails that I want to see, but I'm going to see them on my time, not your time. And I'm going to check the app on my time, not your time, or not their time. And so especially the social media, you don't need to know every time somebody likes your post. You don't need to know every time somebody comments on your post. You don't need to know every time somebody messages you on your post. You open up social media enough, what do you need the notification for, right? So just open up, look at it there. So these are ideas, okay? They're just ideas. Tim had another great one in the small group study. And your small groups, I hope you'll think even more ideas in the small group studies. You talk about this in your small groups. But like one of the ones that Tim added in there was stop texting people who are close by. You understand what he's saying? I think he did it after I texted him and our offices adjoin each other. And I think that may be where he got the idea. But seriously, there are times that I will text him and he's literally 10 feet away. I don't even have to get out of my chair. I just go, hey, Tim. And we do that too. When my son's upstairs, I text him instead of call him. That's just, those are simple ways. So come up with whatever in your small groups. At lunch today, as you're talking about this sermon and, everybody's going, well, you do that, try not to point the finger too much at each other as you're doing this because this message stings a little bit. But just come up with ideas. What can we do? What little habits can we change that'll help us be more present? Or what little habits can our kids change that'll help us be more present? And I promise you, don't go cold turkey because you're not going to be able to do it. But, can we set it aside for 15 minutes? Can we set it aside for, can we turn on Do Not Disturb or whatever it is? Just a few ideas that maybe we can get better at actually being physically, mentally, and spiritually present with people instead of being distracted in these. And so let me do a prayer. I got a couple things I want to share with you, and we'll be dismissed. Father, I'm thankful for the study that we're in, and I'm thankful, one, for the example of Jesus, and we see these examples of Jesus connecting with people and spending time with people, and this is the Savior of the universe that took time to be with people, and we need to do the same. As followers of His, we need to follow in this example as well as the other examples that we follow in His, and help us to navigate help our kids navigate this world as well, and help them know kind of healthier screen habits and maybe push back, a little countercultural pushback at some of what the world is pushing upon us. And so pray you help us to do that and to be wise about it and smart about the way we handle it. And it's in the name of your Son, Jesus, pray these things. Amen. I got offering here, and I'm just putting that up real quick. I got a couple of announcements to finish up with, but this is the way you can give electronically, or if you give in physically, there's boxes around the room. I had an idea that popped up last week, and we've been chatting about it for about a week. And it was, there's a lot here. More people are starting to read this, which is good. But I'm not covering, a fourth of it. I'm really just spending my time in one chapter in it. So I'm not talking about like how social media uniquely affects teenage girls or how video games uniquely affect teenage boys. And I'm not getting into all of that research and all those conversations. But I've had a lot of parents go and like, what do we do now? Like now that I got some info about this, like parents of elementary age are going, at what age do I give them? Because it gets hard because all their friends got it, and the coaches want to communicate that way. And at what age do I give them the devices? And then what kind of controls do I have on it? And are there controls out there? And then the parents of teens are going, we've already done it all. We gave them everything, and now what do we do? I don't even know what to do. We're talking about doing a little parent discussion group on this. And it would be on probably a Sunday afternoon. I'm thinking maybe 4 meetings. The book you could split up into 4 sections, and we're just discussing the book. And it would just be a discussion. I just don't know how many groups that we need, because I do want to keep it small enough that we can actually have a discussion. Like, how are you guys handling it? And and I'd love to have like parents of teens mixed in with parents of younger children, and y'all are asking each other questions. What did you do? How did you handle this? What do you wish you would have done that you didn't do, or whatever? And so this is the way. It's not a sign up, because I got to get it pulled together, the details, and I'm not giving you any details today. I'm just kind of testing the waters to see how much interest we have right now. So that's the way you can let me know on interest, and is just text parent to that number right there. That's the church text number. Just text parent to it, and then I got an idea of kind of how many we got. I'm looking at having parents lead the discussion groups. So I'm looking at basically just a book discussion. That's all. That's all it'd be, just a book discussion. Step 1 is today. It's going to take place in about 10 minutes. So if you signed up for step 1, it's through those doors, follow the hallway all the way to the end, and you'll run into the student ministry room, and Lisa will be there, and food will be set up. You'll start